Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. How you doing out there? Sorry that I missed you for two live streams we missed together. Those were tough times. It was cold out there in the wilderness without all of you. Sorry, Eleanor is not here today, but she will be back, I believe, next week. But yeah, we got a lot to get into. So let's just do it. Let's just do it. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the Democrats, or to be more specific, a high level Democrat admitting that the primaries used to be rigged because they used to be better rigged than they are now. I think seems to be her complaint, that they're no longer as rigged as they used to be. And the truth is, they are as rigged as they used to be. It's just that there are some candidates who are actually beating all of the rigging, which is very upsetting to the ruling elite of the Democratic Party. Anyway, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into ICE is now spending millions of dollars to buy electrocution gloves that electrocute you when they grab you. I'm going to show you video of this horrifying device that they will soon be using, or maybe they're already using. I'm unclear on whether there's a few already out there. But yeah, as if they weren't brutal and disgusting and horrific enough, they'll now be electrocuting these innocent people that they'll be attacking. Also going to get into at least a little bit I put out a Substack column about it this morning, but the real reason, the kind of hidden real reason that Europe is still pushing for like an epic war with Russia, despite the fact that the United States, very slightly, Trump has not ended the war with the proxy war between Russia and Ukraine that he claimed he was going to do on day one or whatever he said. He hasn't ended it, but he has slightly decreased U.S. support for that proxy war while he's murdered innocent people around the world. So yeah, you got to love. He's the peace president, folks. He's the goddamn peace president. Thank you, Al Peterson, for supporting the show. Really appreciate the super chats. Those do make a difference. Okay, but let's start off with Democratic establishment, and specifically, it is Jen Psaki in this clip. For those of you who need a refresher, she now hosts shows on. She hosted a show on CNN, then now MS Now, Multiple Sclerosis Now. She's there. But she was White House Deputy Communications Director under Obama. She was White House Deputy Press Secretary under Obama. She was a spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State under Obama and White House Communications Director. So this is about as inside as you can get without being fucking vice president or something. She knows what's going on in the Democratic Party. And if you followed my stuff, if you have watched my stuff for years, I've brought to you report after report after report after investigation after investigation after investigation on how the Democratic Party rigs their primaries. I've been doing that coverage extensively, at least since 2016, when the primaries were rigged for the first time against Bernie Sanders. And anyway, without further ado, it's a short clip. It's 40 seconds, but I feel like it says a lot. This is Jen Psaki just admitting what they didn't used to admit. Quiet part loud.
It is really, and I want to bring Liz Smith into this conversation because Liz and I grew up in Democratic politics. We're still young, of course, but we grew up in Democratic politics together, and I think we both remember well when party leadership really selected the nominees. Now, you would never say it that way exactly, but they would.
But you can now.
Now we can. We're free. They really did, because they would put money behind it. They would endorse, and now it looks very much like party leaders are not picking the nominees. In fact, party leaders pushing nominees is a negative. It is a negative in many of these races.
So there she is admitting that the Democratic establishment used to, and by used to, she doesn't mean that long ago. She means a few years ago, because she obviously was in the Obama years, used to select the primary winner. Now, they largely still try to, here's the part she's not admitting, is they largely still try to. Maybe they don't publicly endorse as much, I guess, as she's saying, but the money is still there is the money there. Just look at Mom Donnie in New York if you want to see the Democratic Party trying to make sure that someone would not win both the primary and then the general. But specifically, this has to do with the Democratic primaries. They still pump the money in, and I don't know if she said the word data, but that's one of the big things too, is they will decide who gets the data that allows them to generally win these elections, usually win these primaries. That data is so pivotal in terms of which neighborhoods they need to hit up, which neighborhoods are more likely to be more progressive, those type of things. And all that data has a massive impact for the ground game. And the Democratic Party, the DNC specifically, keeps that away from usually the more progressive candidate. I mean, let's be honest. It's not, they keep it away from one primary candidate or another, but usually the progressive one, usually the one that supports Palestine and cares about genocide. And this is the type of thing that she's right, was not admitted. And now here she is admitting it. And she says herself, we didn't used to be able to say this, but now we can, or at least she can. The Democratic Party, which is the ruling elite of the party, which is the psychopaths that run the fucking party, they are the ones that decide who wins these primaries. And they have failed to do so a little bit recently because more Americans are independent now than Democratic or Republican. The progressives are actually, stand for, true, actual, more progressive, whatever. It's a term that's thrown around, doesn't mean a lot anymore. But the ones that are usually pro-Palestine, anti-genocide, those are the ones that are siding with the American people. So they're beating the person that's expected to win or pushed by the Democratic establishment. I just want to play the first half of this clip one more time. This is, again, former White House communications director revealing how these primaries work.
It is really, and I want to bring Liz Smith into this conversation because Liz and I grew up in Democratic politics. We're still young, of course, but we grew up in Democratic politics together, and I think we both remember well when party leadership really selected the nominees. Now, you would never say it that way exactly, but they would.
But you can now.
Now we can. We're free. They really did, because they would put money behind it. They would endorse.
And she doesn't want to admit that they withhold the data, so she she stayed back from saying that. But they put money behind it. They would endorse. Is that it? Is that all? Or would they also do things like make sure there were enough machines in the areas that are more likely to vote for the not progressive, the establishment candidate? They have all kinds of tricks. I mean, I can't even remember them all. We covered them so much in 2016, everything that was done. They'll rearrange the ballots. Lots of times they just accidentally leave like Bernie Sanders off the ballot and then be like, oh, you have to get an additional addendum ballot to vote for Bernie Sanders. Shit like that. One of the biggest ones, which they used extensively in California, I remember, but also other states, was the placebo ballots. They don't call them that. They call them provisional ballots, which means we don't think you're allowed to vote, or we don't have you down on the paper as being able to vote. But you know what? Fill out this pretend ballot, and we'll later, when you're not looking, check to see if your vote really counted. And by God, we will make sure that gets counted. Now, you do that with just a few people, it doesn't make a big difference. But you push that on likely Bernie voters throughout all of California, where just, hundreds of thousands or whatever the number was are filling out provisional ballots, which, by the way, most of them are thrown out. But even in times where people are like, oh no, most of them were not thrown out, most of them were counted. By the time they're counted, it can't change the results. It's like, imagine if they announced that someone won and then 4 weeks later, they're like, we just decided to count all the provisionals and actually they lost. They never do that. That is not a thing that happens. So provisionals are really placebo ballots. Anyway, again, I get off on a tangent so easy because there's like 15 different ways that they carefully rig these primaries. And what the part that, Jen Psaki said the quiet part loud there, but the quiet part she's not saying, because this is going too far, is that that is all. Most of it's still done. Maybe a little less endorsing. Most of it's still done. But what's not what she's not saying is that this still happens a lot in most areas. It's just that right now there are some exceptions to the rule, which the Democratic establishment goes, oh my fucking God, they won, Mamdani won, and they lose their goddamn minds. But it's still the norm that the establishment candidate wins these elections. And of course, the number one way you rig these things is just money. It's just dump loads and loads of money into it. And it's some of these people are so popular that even dumping $100 million in doesn't defeat them, like with Mamdani. But most of the time you dump enough money in. I mean, look at Thomas Massey. I know that's not Democratic, but Thomas Massey in Kentucky, hugely popular, won all his past primaries by 50 to 75 percentage points, like just unbelievable amount. And then the pro-genocide, pro-Zionist lobby dumps over $100 million into that race, and they're able to defeat Massey, who with a guy no one's ever heard of. That's how powerful the money is. But yeah, here they are admitting it. They don't normally admit it, so excited to see that video where they go, "Oh yeah, for years we've been doing this. We've just been fucking rigging these primaries." Okay, so let's keep moving here, and please click thumbs up, click subscribe. Click, most of you know my stuff is crazy suppressed, so it would be awesome if you can help fight the suppression with just a comment, a thumbs up, all that shit. But okay, so I want to get to my friend Sam Husseini, a great reporter. He has just announced he's going to be running for office. I can't remember what position he's running for, but anyway, I'm sure I'll have him on to talk about that in not too long. He's been on the show before, but anyway, you probably the way you know Sam Husseini, if you only know one thing he's done, is he was the guy who's carried out of the Antony Blinken press conferences. Is at the end of Biden's term, they've been causing a genocide, creating and funding a genocide for months and months, and Husseini stood up and demanded they answer about the Hannibal Directive, among other things. And the security guards dragged Sam out of the press conference, beating him so thoroughly that he had concussions for months, or the ramifications of a concussion for months. Thank you, Noli D, for noticing the ticker on the bottom of the screen. I work very hard on that lower third ticker. And very, very few people, I feel like, notice it. And those of you listening to the podcast, you get no ticker. There's no ticker for the podcast listeners. You have a faulty ticker, is what, a bum ticker. But yeah, you guys can come check out the live stream if you want to see it. Anyway, so that's perhaps what Sam Hussein is best known for. He also had a moment recently with Chuck Schumer at the press club, National Press Club, where he grilled Chuck Schumer. And what I'm getting to is Sam Husseini has just announced that the National Press Club, despite the fact that he is a well-known, established, successful journalist, has now banned him from the National Press Club. Okay. And do you realize how rare it is to get banned from the National Press Club? I can go into the National Press Club. That's how rare it is. But I'll tell you more about that in a second. Let's see his moment with Chuck Schumer. I'll play most of the 2 minutes here. This is fairly recently.
Drain the swamp. The presidency is supposed to be a problem.
Oh yeah, I should say, because Sam mentions it a bunch, Chuck Schumer's there to end corruption. That's what he's giving a speech about. It's now time to end corruption.
Public trust. Trump has turned it into the single most profitable.
Senator, you talk about corruption. How can you talk about corruption when you back genocide? What could be more corrupt than backing genocide? This is part of the same con with you and Trump playing off of each other. Oh, he's worse. Oh, he's worse. You were put on notice in November of 2023 by the Center for Constitutional Rights and other legal and human rights organizations. Notice on potential legal liability for aiding, abetting, inciting, or conspiring to commit genocide through congressional acts and demand. You were put on notice, and you backed it, and you backed the genocide to the hilt for years on end. How dare you talk about corruption? How dare you talk about corruption?
Thank you for your diatribe.
Oh,
Now,
you get to make a speech every day.
the
You get to
people-
make a hypocritical speech
people
every
didn't
day,
come to
and
hear
God
you.
forbid you should be questioned about your diabolical record. It's amazing that you can show your genocidal face in public,
How you doing, sir?
Mr. Senator. Mr. Senator. Shame on Public Citizen for not allowing questions to this genocidal maniac. Shame, yeah. Corruption. What could be more corrupt than not allowing questions?
Sorry about that. Let's continue with the subject at hand. Okay.
He actually was on the subject at hand. It was corruption and how fucking corrupt you are, Chuck Schumer. So he was on topic. No, that's of all the complaints you can have. Maybe you could say it was rude, that you didn't like it, but he was on topic. Corruption was the topic. Also, for those of you watching the video, you notice Sam doesn't fight the people that come in to escort him out. He doesn't punch anyone in the face. He doesn't even pull his arm away. They come once they decide they're walking him out, he just walks out with them. There is no fight. There is no aggression, physical aggression. Instead, Sam just did what reporters should actually do, but they don't, is address the shit show that is these psychopaths that run our society, run our government. And anyway, for this, Sam has now been banned for questioning Schumer. He says, I've just received a letter from the executive director of the National Press Club. He writes, this letter serves as formal written notice that effective immediately, you are not authorized to enter, attempt to enter, or remain on the premises, own, lease, manage, occupied, or controlled, or even thought about by the National Press Club. In reference to my confronting Schumer, he claims during the incident, you disrupted the event. Oh, God forbid. Refused repeated directions to leave the premises. No, he walked right out of the room. Interfered with the orderly operation of the club. Well, when the orderly operation is defending genocide, you should interfere with that operation. Absolutely. If you have a human soul of any kind, you should interfere with that operation. And engaged in a physical confrontation with club security personnel. You guys saw the video. Sam is nicer than I would have been. He just calmly walks out. Following a review of the incident, the Board of Governors determined the revocation of your access to club control premises is necessary to protect the safety and security of its members, guests, speakers, staff, and visitors. The National Press Club, yeah, that's what protects. It protects genocidal maniacs, is what it does. We're concerned that our genocidal maniacs might be frightened, that they might get a little bit scaredy pants. We don't know. And so we got to, all we could do is protect them from you. If you attempt to enter, or remain on the club control premises, after receiving this notice, the club may request your immediate removal, contact law enforcement, pursue any other remedies under applicable law. He says the charges are not only preposterous, but I had already addressed them. The day after the Schumer event, upon the recommendation of other journalists, I had emailed the National Press Club president. I said, I hope you're well. As you're likely aware, I attended the public citizen event. And by the way, you heard him mention that the reason Sam Husseini just jumped up and started speaking as opposed to waiting for the questions is because all the reporters there had already been informed there would be no questions allowed at the Chuck Schumer End the Corruption event. Anyway, to continue from Sam's letter to the National Press Club, I was told by the head of security that I would be banned. Such an eventuality should not come about. I spoke up because it was clear that Schumer would not be taking questions. There was no threat whatsoever to security. We were next to each other before his remarks. Tough questioning is of paramount importance, especially given a character like Schumer, with how he is viewed by many and his hypocrisies. And it increases civic engagement as displayed by the interest in my questioning that we saw online. I've been a longtime member. Anyway, you get the point. This is what happens if you speak up specifically against genocide, but really, if you speak up at the National Press Club, if you ask real questions of these psychopaths that are killing all of us via the wars they're dragging us into, via the climate crisis, et cetera, et cetera. If you ask any real questions, actually hold them accountable, then you will be banned for life from these organizations or these locations. Anyway, Sam Husseini, I'm sure I'll have him on the show in the coming weeks to talk about both that event and his decision to run for office. So all that, keep an eye out for all that. All right, let's keep moving to how ICE is now electrocuting people. That's their new technique. I'm surprised they don't just use like cattle prods. Why have they decided against that? Before I do that, real quick, I just wanted to say I do have a new column just up today, free to read at reallycamp.substack.com. You can also, if you feel like you get 33 cents out of my shows, then please join up at reallycamp.substack.com or patreon.com/LeeCamp. Or if you want to be part of the locals community, and by the way, you can sign up for more than one of these, and you obviously could do a free membership on any one of these, so you don't have to pick. But if you want to be part of the Lee Camp community, that's at locals, and that's leecamp.net will take you straight there. So yeah, but reallycamp.substack.com is where the new article is. All right, but let's keep moving here. ICE apparently has a contract out for spending millions of dollars for gloves that electrocute people. This is not dystopian at all, by the way. I just want to be clear up top. This is not dystopian at all. It's not the type of shit you'd see in like Philip K. Dick based movie. This is not. No, this is totally cool. This is what a free society looks like. Free society is guys with no identifying marks on them, covering their face and grabbing people and electrocuting them by dictate of the psychopaths at the top. That's a free and open society. I want you to know. And I want everybody to know that before we get into this article, okay? Don't question that. Don't question that. Here we go. This was posted at 404 Media. They got a hold of the manual for ICE's new electric shock gloves. And in a second, I'm going to show you video of this horror show. But and they always love to be clever. The lunatics who come up with shit like this. And so the new electric glove is called GLOVE, the acronym GLOVE. I think they also wanted the word love in there. You know, that's true love is electrocuting someone to put them inside of a torture cell. That's true love. GLOVE stands for generated low output. Don't worry, it's only a light electrocution. Low output voltage emitter. Immigration and Customs Enforcement plans to spend tens of millions of dollars on buying specialized gloves that pulse with electric energy, which make it easier for agents to subdue people. As in, it's funny, if you electrocute someone, they tend to not resist. And this just goes along with the loads of other of what they call less than lethal devices that our law enforcement use, like the rubber bullets that can kill someone, like the stun guns that can kill people or have killed people, the various forms of electric shock that they've killed people with. But the glove, I believe, is new. All right, here's a video, and I'm sorry for those of you listening to the podcast. You're not going to be able to see this horror show, but here's a video of people at a demonstration being taken down with the new electric ice gloves. And then everybody around laughs because it's so, dystopia and fucking end games, fascist end games is totally, it's hilarious. It's just so funny. It's just so funny to see it happen. And for those of you listening to the podcast, you might wonder why the video I showed was 3 seconds long, because that's how long it lasted. This woman grabs a guy by the wrist and he face plants in about 3 seconds. But here's some more, in case that wasn't enough.
Okay, I'm sending it to the group right now.
As another large man thrown down in about 2 seconds as he's being electrocuted. Now, as it says in the manual, I don't have access to it right now, but as it says in the manual, this can kill people, and they generally know it will kill someone. There's not a form of electrocution that can't, like, no matter how light an electrocution might be, it's not really possible to make it so that even the worst heart doesn't stop. Like, any form of electric shock can cause a heart to stop and can kill someone. So they know that this can and will, if widely used, will kill people. But they don't care. As with the cops already have stun guns. There was a big, I can't remember the name of the victim, but the person murdered, but it was a big one several years ago where the cop acts, well, this is the claim, and he was like an elderly police volunteer. Why the fuck would he have a gun? I don't know. Anyway, he took out his real gun instead of what he thought he was grabbing his stun gun, and he just shot the person in the back. That was a well-known moment several years ago, but a well-known murder by police. So they already have forms of electrocution. I guess the new thing is that they'll be wearing these electric gloves and electrocuting people. Anyway, let's do 2 more, and then I think that's probably enough of this. But
I'm going to jail. I don't want to go. Go, get on the ground, stop fighting. Go to jail, the bad guy says. No way. I'm not going. That's your job. Get on the ground. Okay.
So the other thing that you can't see in the podcast is, if you're listening to the podcast, is that during the moment these people are taken down, they are clearly in excruciating pain. Like, that woman screamed, "Ah!" And these are people who volunteered, but obviously it is brutally excruciating. I wouldn't at all be surprised if the way the muscles tense could cause you to break your wrist, especially for people that are more frail, or break various bones. But none of that matters. We are in fascist America. This is a fascist time, and what freedom looks like is, again, masked vigilantes electrocuting you because they feel like it. Yeah. So coming to a sidewalk near you, coming to your street any day now. The G-Love device. All right, moving on. I want to get to, so I wrote a Substack about this, but I wanted to go a little more in depth. The Substack came out this morning. I wanted to go a little more in depth on what Richard Wolff said than I could do in the Substack column. So obviously, if you haven't read the Substack, I hope you still check it out. I hope you still share it with people. But it is Richard Wolff, your favorite economist and mine. Richard Wolff, of course, been on the show many times, and I've been on his show. But he recently came out with an article detailing what he believes is the true reasons that Europe has been economically just, really hurt. I don't want to say destroyed, but really hurt by this proxy war with Russia. And if you just look at it for face value and what they're saying, and you understand the reality of this proxy war, that, that NATO moved onto Russia's borders farther and farther and farther until Russia basically was forced to respond. If you understand the reality of this, then you wonder, why would Europe and the UK, I'm going to say Europe several times, and the UK, all right? It's a fucking little island there. It's still Europe. I'm calling it Europe. I don't care if you had your Brexit. I don't care what you ate for Brexit. I'm still calling it Europe. Oh, by the way, I should do a segment on this. I saw an interesting thing about how Brexit is crushing the UK, but the reason it did, because it's been 10 years, but the reason it didn't really show up was basically because of COVID. Like, the reason people didn't know Brexit, how awful it was for the UK immediately, economically, was because everybody, like the whole world, suffered during COVID. And so you couldn't really see the impact of the Brexit. And anyway, now you're seeing it. Interesting segment, but that's a side note. If you just look at the things for face values and the reasons they give, you wonder, why would Europe do something that's so terrible for them to push war with Russia, push, like, not just to keep the Ukraine war going, the Ukraine proxy war, but to push like an even further war with Russia. I mean, they are fear-mongering against Russia in a way that we haven't seen in a generation. It's like fucking crazy. Thank you, Dan, for supporting the show. Super chats matter. Appreciate it. Anyway, and I think Richard Wolff has the actual answer as to why this is happening. Why Europe's leaders are provoking war with Russia right now. So he says Europe bet and built their careers on accepting, and specifically the leaders of Europe, so not the average people, obviously, on accepting junior partner positions via the United States. But Europe's decline now threatens to split Europe apart. Inside each nation, rich and powerful minorities use their social positions to sustain their wealth and power, while the masses bear most of the burdens of the decline offloaded onto them by the rich and powerful. The problems flowing from these cumulative developments are approaching points of social explosion. A complex shifting relationship between anti-colonialism and anti-capitalism continues to evolve in both the global South and former colonial powers. So, as I mentioned in my Substack column, the Europe, at least their recent wealth, their wealth, post World War I, or and prior to World War I too. But we're talking modern wealth. Their wealth came and comes from colonialism, from extracting wealth from largely the global South, Africa, Latin America, various places around the world. Most of that has ended. Like, there's not a lot of wealth that is being funneled up to, France, Germany, and Spain, etc., due to colonial outposts, due to the people they have colonized and subjugated. That kind of time is largely done. And so they have to, since World War II, they've had to get their wealth from another place. And that place has largely been being essentially like riding the coattails of the U.S. empire, being, he says, the junior partner of the U.S. empire. But now that gravy train is ending because the U.S. empire is collapsing, or at least waning. And you have Donald Trump being so erratic in terms of Europe that they don't know. They're like paying crazy tariffs. They don't know what the fuck's happening. So their gravy train, their two gravy trains have ended. One was subjugating poorer nations, and that's pretty much gone. And the other one has been riding coattails of the U.S. empire, and that one's mostly gone, or at least somewhat gone. As their empires dissolved in wars of independence, capitalist profits and their national economies were threatened. To undo this, he's basically saying what I just said, but to undo this, the U.S. had scooped up most of the European and Japanese colonialisms that they had lost. U.S. capitalists moved into newly independent ex-colonies, et cetera, et cetera. U.S. hegemony defined itself as a moral crusade against a great evil, the USSR. The U.S. was the leader of the free world, pitted against the unfree world, right? You got USSR, Eastern Europe, and China. The world thus entered into the Cold War between 45 and 1990, punctuated by military hot wars when the U.S. deemed them necessary. Korea and Vietnam being probably the two biggest ones. For the last 75 years, European politicians who hesitated to embrace the positions and tones consistent with the U.S.-European consensus on foreign and domestic policy saw their career opportunities threatened or destroyed. And at times we may, or people working with us may have assassinated some folks. Possibly Olof Palme in Sweden and others. Sometimes you gotta kill people when they're acting all lefty, you know? The Trump's new tariffs particularly shocked Western European capitalists who had concentrated during Reconstruction, 1945 to 75, on producing goods and services that could compete in the rich U.S. market. So the tariffs kind of fucked up the end stages of their gravy train. Europe already had a century of decline, whereas the U.S. was new to decline, with many of its citizens steadfastly committed to denial. Then, and especially after 1989, Europe welcomed waves of cheap immigrant labor. So they've, Europe, expanding eastward to reabsorb Eastern Europe into the economic operations. Much it was doing with former colonies, pushing NATO eastward, expanding EU membership. Adding Eastern Europe to NATO was part of what allowed them to keep growing. The shock of Trump's abandonment of Europe as the U.S. economy's junior partner accelerated Europe's decline. Once it had been dominating the center of the planet, it had colonized. Now it had fallen to a poor third place in a world economy increasingly dominated by what had once been the poor corners of the planet. So it basically becomes, with the two main gravy trains over, how are the rich ruling elite of Europe and the UK, how are they going to hang on to their wealth and power? They don't have the money's not flowing. So they've got to find a way. Well, their answer has been, at minimum, to scare everybody into believing there's war with Russia, which will allow a massive military buildup. They can scrape a lot of money out of that. It allows a lot of austerity, cutting social programs for the people. But then quite possibly an actual war with Russia beyond just the proxy war in Ukraine is where these ruling psychopaths, that's where they're pushing things. Richard Wolff says Europe's old U.S.-linked political leaders have now found a way to arrest or maybe even reverse Europe's frightening decline. It is the only way that they can imagine. Doing this, they believe, both can keep them in power in the short run and give them a new economic growth opportunity in the longer term. They will cover the cost of rearmament. The people will cover the cost of rearmament and tribute obligated to the U.S. by diverting funds from the welfare state plus state-guaranteed borrowing plus heightened mass-based taxes, if needed, on working classes. Domestic austerity will be intensified across Western Europe, while wages are brought downward towards Southern and Eastern European levels. Europe's leaders believe they can accomplish this by pumping up mass anxiety and fear around urgent preparations for a war against Russia. To that end, they demonize Russia beyond even the levels achieved against Stalin and Stalinism during the Cold War. Those leaders hope that an adequately terrified Europe will keep voting for them for a while. And I would go beyond voting for them. They just, like, the elected officials are largely pawns of the true ruling elite, the richest of the rich, the corporate oligarchs. And the corporate oligarchs just want to make sure that their bidding is still done by the governments and that the people aren't going to rise up and guillotine them. So this is how they achieve that. If you can keep the people more afraid of the other, of someone over there, then they rarely turn and look at their own country and go, but what about that fucking guy? What about that rich guy there? What's he up to? I don't think he's a good guy. They rarely do that if they're afraid of the great other. If they're like, there was very little like, let's rise up and bring down this corrupt government during like the, post 9/11 years, because the U.S., the average American, was so afraid of the great other that was going to get you that really the government could do whatever the fuck it wanted. It was only after several years where the, average American started to tire of, an endless war in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's when people started being like, this government is fucking corrupt. Anyway, but I'm even more fascinated in this piece. I'm even more fascinated by what he says is the longer run hopes of these ruling elite. He says the longer run hopes entail imagining Russia's military defeat and consequent de facto disarmament. Sorry, not disarmament, dismemberment. The resulting subunits of old Russia would then offer Western Europe a new colonial opportunity, a vast expanse for profitable investment to obtain food, raw materials, and possibly workers to rejuvenate Western European capitalism. Remember, Russia is the largest country by landmass. It also has some of the largest oil supplies, some of the largest supplies of other resources. So, for Europe and to some degree the US, but we're focusing on Europe, to bring down Russia and chop it up and steal everything they got would allow these psychopath capitalists to live fat on the hog. Is that a mixed metaphor? No, is that an expression? High on the hog? To live on the fat of the hog? To live on a fat hog. It would allow them to live fat and easy for a long time. So it seems that is the actual goal of a lot of these psychopaths. It would be a vast expanse for profitable investment to obtain food, raw materials, and possibly workers to rejuvenate Western European capitalism. The same Western European leaders who criticized Trump lusting after Denmark's Greenland indulge parallel lusts after Russia's geographic expanse. And then he concludes with the whole world watches as China, Russia, and their allies square off against the U.S. and whatever allies it retains. The world sees the wars in Ukraine and Iran today as conflicts among proxies of the two great powers of our time. And so this really does make some, it kind of pulls together a bunch of threads as to why Europe, which compared to the United States is a rather peaceful place, right? Compared to the United States, which is always running headfirst into war after war after war, Europe has backed many of those wars, but has not generally been the one saying, let's go to war, let's kill some people. And so to have Europe now almost leading the thrust for a greater war with Russia has been kind of shocking to see. And I think a lot of people are wondering what is behind this. And it is the desperation of the ruling psychopaths that need to find a way to keep enriching themselves. And as I say in the Substack column, they are more than willing to enrich themselves off a death spiral. They apparently no amount of blood and death is too much as long as it keeps them rich. And you can see that with climate crisis. It's like we're talking about the end of humanity if this keeps going the way it's going, and the rich don't care. They're like, are we? They're basically like, wait, are we still selling oil? Yeah, still selling. Okay, good, okay, yeah, that'll be good for my bank account. That's fine, great. But anyway, good article by Richard Wolff, and if you want the far more abbreviated version, it's at realleecamp.substack.com. Hope you'll support my work over there. Okay, one more story here. Thanks everybody who's here for being here and fighting the censorship with me. So it seems like it seems to now be a daily segment is the latest AI dystopian shit show. And this one is about corporate America is using your personal data. I know this isn't specifically about AI, but I guarantee you they're using AI to analyze the personal data. Anyway, using your personal data to figure out the lowest possible salary you'll accept. So rather than just thinking this is what a job should pay, which used to be how it was, they now can use algorithms and AI to analyze essentially your entire history. Because between what you present to them on your resume combined with what they can scrape offline, they can get a pretty goddamn good picture of you, unless you are one of the weirdos who has like never posted a thing online. And once they have that picture, they can use AI to analyze that and basically figure out fairly accurately what amount of money you will accept for the job, and well, the lowest amount of money. And this is very different than how it used to work, where a company, even fairly awful companies, would think, how much is this job worth? You know, how much do people normally get paid for this job? And we'll offer that to this employee. This is the standard amount that, you know, the last employee got, or this, you know, the amount we pay others with similar jobs. They're not doing that anymore, or at least some of them are not. Instead, they could be paying for the exact same job. Let's say they have 10 data analysts or whatever. I guess data analyzers are gone, right? It's all AI now. Anyway, let's say they have 10 people emptying the trash cans, and 9 of them are getting paid, you know, whatever. Make up another. I'll make up a fake number. $12 million a year to empty the trash cans. And then they analyze your data about your life, and they realize you're likely to accept this job for $30,000 a year. And so that's now what they offer, rather than what others are getting paid or what the job is worth. It's the lowest possible amount they can offer. It's so strikingly dystopian. And this article would go well. This is at Market Watch. This article would go well with something I brought you a few weeks ago or a week ago or something, about Meta is being sued. Meta Facebook's being sued for using AI to analyze people, analyze their entire life, and probably also like facial recognition can sometimes know whether you are, you know, aging faster or you might be sick soon or whatever. So it's not just the data, it's probably also facial recognition and shit like that. Anyway, Meta used all that information to figure out which employees were likely to get sick and have some sort of medical issue in the next, 5 or 10 years, and fire them because Meta didn't want to pay for it. Not currently were sick, not currently had medical issues, which is fucked up enough. No, likely. It's pre-crime. This is pre-medical condition. And they fired all the people that were likely or possibly likely to get sick so that they wouldn't have to pay for those healthcare bills. Again, something that you only see in America, right? These things where people's whole lives are changed over healthcare bills, it doesn't exist in other countries usually. It's really just an American thing. But yeah, that is the latest story for your dystopian shit show. I am going to wrap a couple of minutes early today because I have urgent shit that has to get done. But I love you guys. Thank you for being here. And I shouldn't be missing. I know there's been I've had some weird schedule with travels and everything, but that should be it. I should be schedule should be very regular coming up, I hope. And I will see you Monday. And I do these live streams 3 days a week. Wednesday, every other Wednesday is a little bit different. It's Government Secrets, my other podcast. But I hope you join me regularly. And you're not going to get alerted to this. I mean, I want you to change the alerts to all alerts on YouTube, but you probably won't get alerted no matter what. So please just show up Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Thanks so much. You guys rock. Keep fighting.